Hello everyone, welcome back to Sydney and Starlet. And if you're new here, welcome! Enjoy the videos. So today, me and Sydney are going to be reading Disney Fairies, Tinkerbell, a Read-Aloud storybook. So let's begin. Just the other day we read a Tinkerbell storybook, but it wasn't quite like this one. On a chilly winter's night in London, a baby lay peacefully in her crib. As her mobile twirled, the baby let out her very first laugh. And, as with all first laughs, a fairy was born. The laugh floated out the window and attached itself to a dandelion wisp. It flew above the human world, straight toward the second star to the right, and drew a burst of light into Neverland. The first laugh floated toward Pixie Hollow, a magical place in the heart of Neverland, where the Neverland fairies lived. "Oh my! Come on, let's go!" the fairies cried. They followed the laugh as it made its way toward the pixie dust tree. A dust keeper named Terrence sprinkled some pixie dust on the laugh. It made a tinkling sound and took the shape of a fairy. Queen Clarion approached. Born of laughter, clothed in cheer, happiness has brought you here. Welcome to Pixie Hollow, she said. The newcomer flapped her wings. She could fly. Queen Clarion waved her hand, and some toadstools sprang up. Fairies began to place objects on them. Rosetta, a garden fairy, brought a flower. A water fairy named Silver Mist carried a droplet of water. Iridessa, a light fairy, had a glowing flower lamp, while a fast-flying fairy named Vidya set down a whirlwind. "These objects will help you find your talent," the queen explained. The new fairy timidly placed her hand on the flower. Its glow instantly faded. She reached for the water droplet, but its glow faded too. Then she touched the whirlwind, and it disappeared. The new fairy was discouraged, but as she passed the hammer, it started to glow. Then it flew straight toward her. "I've never seen one glow that much," said Silver Mist. Rosetta agreed. Little Daisy Top might be a very rare talent indeed. Vidya fumed. She had one of the strongest and rarest talents in Pixie Hollow, and she wasn't looking for competition. "Come forward, Tinker Fairies," called the queen, "and welcome the newest member of your talent guild, Tinkerbell." "Hey-de-hi, hey-de-ho, I'm Clank," boomed a large Tinker Fairy. "We're pleased as a pile of perfectly polished pots that you're here," added Bobble, a tinker who wore dewdrop glasses. "You have arrived at the most wondrous and glorious time," Clank said as they flew above Pixie Hollow. "It's almost time for the changing of the seasons," added Bobble. "Welcome to Tinker's Nook," Bobble announced. After a little while, Tinkerbell saw a small courtyard lined with twig and leaf cottages. Fairies were fixing and fashioning all kinds of amazing, useful objects. Clank and Bobble dropped Tinkerbell off at her own little house. All the clothes in her closet were much too big. Luckily, Tink knew just what to do. Tinkerbell put on her new dress, tied her hair up, and reported to the workshop. Soon, Fairy Mary, the no-nonsense fairy who ran Tinker's Nook, arrived. "So dainty!" Fairy Mary exclaimed as she looked at Tink's hands. "Don't worry, dear. We'll build up those tinker muscles in no time." Then, after reminding Clank and Bobble to make their deliveries, Fairy Mary was gone. A little while later, Tink, Clank, and Bobble set out to deliver some springtime items to the nature fairies with help from Cheese the mouse. Suddenly, the fairies heard a sound behind them. Pitter patter, pitter patter! Sprinting thistles! Ah! Screamed Clank. The weeds nearby had come to life and were rushing toward them. The wagon flew down the path and crashed in the middle of Springtime Square. Thankfully, the Tinkers were unhurt. They began to make their deliveries. There were milkweed, pot satchels for an animal fairy named Fawn, pussy willow brushes for Rosetta, and rainbow tubes for Iridessa. Silver Mist was there too. She sprayed water into the air. When Iridessa flew through the droplets, a perfect rainbow was formed. Iridessa rolled it up into a tube. I'm going to take it to the mainland, she explained to Tink. What's the mainland? The new fairy asked. It's where we're going for spring, to change the seasons, replied Silver Mist. Next, the Tinkers stopped at the flower meadow. Vidya zipped by, using her whirlwind to pull pollen from the flowers. Hi, said Tinkerbell. What's your talent? I am a fast-flying fairy, answered Vidya. I make breezes in summer and blow down leaves in autumn. Fairies of every talent depend on me. Tinkers help fairies of every talent too, Tink said excitedly. I make forces of nature. You make pots and kettles, Vidya pointed out. It's not like spring depends on you. When I go to the mainland, I'll prove just how important we are, Tink replied. I, for one, am looking forward to that, Vidya said, rolling her eyes. Tink flew off, grumbling to herself. Soon, however, she was distracted by something shiny down on the beach. She flew closer. It was a coin. Tink began digging. Before long, she had found all sorts of treasures. She scooped them up and took them to the workshop. Lost things, said Clank when Tink arrived. They wash up in Neverland from time to time, said Bobble. Not much good for anything, though. Fairy Mary whisked Tink's trinkets away. The Queen's review of the springtime preparations was that night, and there was still a lot to do. Tink knew this was her chance to prove just how important a tinker's talent really is. That evening, the Minister of Spring welcomed Queen Clarion to the review ceremony. When the ever blossom blooms, we will be ready to bring spring to the mainland, she said proudly. Suddenly, Tinkerbell arrived. I came up with some fantastic things for Tinkers to use when we go to the mainland, she called. Before the Queen could say anything, Tink pulled out a homemade paint sprayer. But instead of spraying color, it exploded, making a huge mess. The Queen looked at Tinkerbell kindly. Tinker fairies don't go to the mainland, she said. All the springtime work is done by the nature fairies. I'm sorry. Tink returned to the workshop. Being a tinker stinks, she grumbled. Excuse me, replied Fairy Mary. Why don't we get to go to the mainland? Tink asked. The day you can magically make the flowers grow or capture the rays of sun, you can go. Until then, your work is here, said Fairy Mary impatiently. Suddenly, Tink smiled slyly. She had an idea. The next morning, Tink found her friends at the pixie dust well. If you could teach me your talents, maybe the Queen will let me go to the mainland, Tink said. No fairy had ever changed his or her talent. Reluctantly, Tink's friends agreed to help. Silvermist was first. The water fairy showed Tink how to place a dewdrop on a spiderweb. But each time Tink tried, the dewdrop burst. Next, Iridessa demonstrated how to give fireflies their glow. She captured lights in a bucket and scattered it. Dozens of fireflies flew through it and lit up. But when Tink tried, the light wouldn't stick to her fingers. She threw the bucket in frustration. The light spilled in every direction. Now she was glowing too. The fireflies swarmed around her. They thought she was the most beautiful thing they had ever seen. Fawn had Tink's animal fairy lesson all planned. "We're teaching baby birds how to fly," she announced. Fawn showed Tink what to do. Unfortunately, Tink's bird was terrified. It didn't want to go anywhere. Tink saw a majestic bird flying overhead. Maybe he can help, she thought. She waved her hand and tried to get the bird's attention. The scout fairies looked to see what was going on. "Hawk! Hawk!" they yelled, sounding their warning horns. Tink spotted a tree with a knothole and rushed straight for it. The hole was already occupied by Vidya. Crack! The hawk broke through the bark with his beak. The two fairies had to get out of there, fast. They jumped down a hole into a long, dark tunnel. When Vidya reached the end of the tunnel, she could see the hawk on a nearby branch. She stopped in the nick of time, but Tink accidentally slammed into her. Vidya went shooting out of the tree. The hawk opened its beak, ready to strike. Fairies pelted him with berries, rocks, and twigs. Luckily, the bird flew away. "Let me help you," Tink said to Vidya. "I'm fine," snapped Vidya. "I was only trying to help," Tink explained. She felt awful. A little while later, Tinkerbell sat on the beach. "At this rate, I should go to the mainland right about... Oh, never!" Tink angrily threw a pebble into the bushes and heard a clunk. She went to investigate and found a beautiful porcelain box. When her friends found her, Tinkerbell was busy putting all the gears and screws and springs back inside the box. The final touch was attaching a ballerina to the lid. Tinkerbell gave the dancer a spin, and to her delight, the box played music. "Do you even realize what you're doing?" asked Rosetta. "Fixing stuff like this. That's what tinkering is. Who cares about going to the mainland anyway?" Silvermist added. But Tink still wanted to go. Tink went to see the only fairy she thought might be able to help. But Vidya was not in the mood for visitors, especially Tinkerbell. "You're my last hope," pleaded Tink. "Rosetta won't even try to teach me to be a garden fairy." That gave Vidya an evil idea. She suggested that Tinkerbell capture the sprinting thistles to prove that she would be a good garden fairy. Tink knew that Vidya's plan was her last chance to go to the mainland. She set to work building a corral. "Hiya! Get! Tinkerbell cried as she rode out into the needlepoint meadow atop Cheese. She used 2 twigs to herd some thistles into the corral. "It's working!" Tink cried joyfully. But as she headed back to the meadow, Vidya quietly blew open the corral gate. The thistles ran away. Soon, other thistles popped up to join the ones that had escaped. It was a stampede. The thistles headed toward Springtime Square, trampling over the carefully organized springtime supplies. Everything was destroyed, and it was all Tinkerbell's fault. There isn't a garden fairy alive who can control those weeds, Rosetta exclaimed. This has all gone too far, declared Silver Mist. Just then, Queen Clarion appeared. By the second star, all the preparations for spring. I'm sorry, Tinkerbell whispered as she took to the sky. A little while later, Tink went to the pixie dust well. She told Terrence she was leaving Pixie Hollow. He kindly gave her a double scoop of glittering dust. Thanks, Terrence, said Tink. Terrence was surprised she knew his name. I'm just a dust keeper, he said. Not exactly seen as the most important fairy in Pixie Hollow. You're probably the most important one there is, Tink argued. Without you, no one would have any magic. You should be proud. I am, Terrence replied. Tink could tell that Terrence knew she wasn't proud of her talent. Tink stopped in to visit the workshop one last time. She did love to tinker, even though her contraptions never worked. Just then, she noticed that Cheese was sniffing something. It was the pile of trinkets she had found on the beach. Lost things. That's it, she cried. She went to her work table and started to tinker. That night, Queen Clarion gathered all the fairies. She explained that spring would not arrive that year, since there wasn't time to replace what had been ruined. Wait, Tinkerbell cried, landing in the middle of the square. I know we can fix everything. She demonstrated her paint sprayer, which she had fixed so it would work perfectly. Tink had also designed a speedy machine to fix the things the thistles had trampled. Vidya was furious. Corral the thistles, she muttered. I should have told you to go after the hawk. Queen Clarion overheard this. She looked sharply at Vidya. I think your fast-flying talent is well suited to chasing down each and every one of the thistles, the queen said sternly. Vidya flew away. All of a sudden, she had a lot of work to do. The queen turned to Tinkerbell. Are you sure you can do this? She asked. I'm a tinker, and tinkers fix things, Tink replied confidently. But I can't do it alone. Clank, Bobble, and all the fairies offered to help. Soon the square was filled with piles and piles of useful objects. Tink showed a group of fairies how to assemble a machine to make berry paint. As soon as all the pieces of the machine were put together, the berries were crushed and dozens of buckets were filled to the brim with paint. Next, Tink used a glove and a harmonica to make a vacuum. The fairies could use it to collect hundreds of seeds at a time. Everywhere she looked, Tinkerbell could see baskets and buckets of springtime supplies. Her plan was working. Early the next morning, Queen Clarion and the ministers of the seasons flew to the square. They couldn't believe their eyes. There were more springtime supplies than they had ever seen. As the sun began to rise, the Everblossom opened, giving off a golden glow. It was time to take spring to the mainland. The fairies cheered. You did it, Tinkerbell, Queen Clarion exclaimed. We all did, Tink replied. Can't Tink come with us? Silver Mist asked. It's okay, Tink protested. My work is here. Fairy Mary gave a little whistle, and Clank and Bobble appeared with the music box. I actually ran across this myself many seasons ago, said Fairy Mary. Didn't have a clue how to fix it, but you did, Tinkerbell. And I'd imagine there's someone out there who's missing this. Perhaps a certain Tinker Fairy has a job to do after all. on the mainland. Tink and the other fairies flew toward London. When they arrived, everything was cold and the landscape was gray. The fairies spread out across the city. A light fairy melted the frost on a tree branch. A water fairy sprinkled pixie dust on a frozen pond to thaw the ice. The animal fairies gently woke the hibernating creatures tucked inside the trees. Soon the flowers bloomed and baby birds took flight. Tink was amazed by the magic her friends created. Now it was time for Tinkerbell to make her special delivery. She sprinkled some of the extra pixie dust Terrence had given her on the music box to make it fly. As Tink passed the bedroom window, both she and the music box began to glow. Tink knew that the owner of the music box must live there. She set the box on a windowsill and peered into the room. Tink tapped on the glass and ducked out of sight. In a few moments, a little girl named Wendy Darling poked her head out the window. Wendy's face filled with happiness. She took a small key from a chain around her neck and turned it in a slot. The music box began to play. The fairies' work was done. It was time for them to return to Neverland. From then on, Tink used her rare talent to make the lives of everyone in Pixie Hollow just a little bit better. She was proud to be a Tinker Fairy. That ends. And here's a little poster the book came with. So that is it for today, everyone. I really hope you all enjoyed it, and we will see you all in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Pick out your favorite page. Who's your favorite character?
Guys.
The sky? She's pointing at the word sky. Well, all right. Ciao.
Guys.
Sky. Can you say ciao?
So,
Ciao.
guys. Bulk.
This book.